Hey, welcome back, everybody. Today, I am excited to have my friend Lynn Louise Larson with me. And just like every episode, there's going to be several different things that you're going to get out of today's episode. And again, like normal, we never know where we're going to go. So make sure, whatever you do, stick around and listen to this entire episode, because when you do, you're going to learn some things that are going to be practical takeaways that are going to help you have a better life. So with that, let's roll the episode. You are jamming with Jason Mefford, where you hear inspiring interviews with some amazing people. Some are famous, some may seem ordinary, and they are all doing extraordinary things to positively change the world. Sometimes it's just you and me having an intimate and authentic conversation about how you can change the world around you and rewrite the story of your life by being more authentic, accepting and loving yourself more, and spreading love to others. Since really, all you need is love. And what the world needs now is love, sweet love. We discuss all aspects of self-improvement, growth, and so much more. Great content, insightful advice that's practical and helpful to anyone that listens. You're always eager to come back for more and share with your friends and family, since you learn something in every episode. So sit back and enjoy the easy listening while you feel seen and heard in this informative, authentic, and entertaining podcast. Now, let's roll that beautiful podcast footage. Hey, Lynn Louise, how are you?
I'm great. I'm so excited about this conversation because I just adore interviews. Not only does it give me the opportunity to help others, but I learn so much through them. So thank you so much for having me here.
That's why I love doing this. This is one of my favorite things to do, because I have a couple of beliefs. One of which is we all have stories to tell, and we can all learn from others' stories, right? And by doing that, we find out that, hey, we're not so different from everybody else.
I hear you.
Right. And watching or seeing and hearing other people's stories help us know what's possible for us, as well. And that if other people can make it through certain challenges in their life, it means we can make it through challenges in our life as well. So I'm excited to be with you, because like I said, there's so many things that we are like right in line with. So let's just kind of jump in. Let's give people a little background on you, kind of your origin story and how you kind of got to where you are today, because I think that's going to help a lot of people, and it'll get us into the discussion of some practical ways that people can use this in their own life.
Oh, wonderful. I love sharing my story because I think it's very relatable to a lot of people. And it is definitely the reason why I do what I do today, which is I help coaches and healers dominate their business so that they can, spread transformation around the world, but they don't really need to know any more strategy. I just help them tap into a new mindset, because we know growing a business is 90% mental, 10% strategy. So I help them do that. But much like everyone else on this planet, I popped out onto the planet, clean slate, no belief systems, nothing.
And then you start getting programmed.
And then I totally started learning all this shit that wasn't right.
Yep.
Like, oh, you're not smart enough. You're not strong enough. You're not old enough. I mean, all of these things that are told to all of us by well-meaning caretakers or parents to keep us safe. But I had all these really big dreams when I was young. I wanted to join the Peace Corps. I wanted to travel the world. I want to transform lives. For those that love astrology, I'm an Aquarius, so I was all into that, right? Like, I'm going to transform the world.
And it is the age of Aquarius, by the way.
I know. You don't think I know that?
I know. It's a great song. I love that song. Right. So anyway.
So I had all these really big plans, but at the age of 15, I was sexually assaulted by an upperclassman and close friend. And while I know that it was not my fault. My brain, because I'm all into brain science, so we're going to talk brain today. My logical brain said, no, 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 it wasn't your fault, Lynn. You know, you didn't ask for this. You didn't need, you know, it wasn't something that you could have planned on or anticipated. But my subconscious brain was telling me much different stories, and it created much different meanings and belief systems around those stories. And one of the biggest ones was you can't trust yourself. So I began to stop making the big decision making for myself. And what that looked like was I started listening to professors, counselors, all these people, and they're like, you're good at accounting, go to university, study numbers, climb the corporate America ladder, you know, get a good job, all those things. And that's what I did. I left behind the dream. You know what I'm talking about.
Well, I do. And so I didn't know that about you before, but I have an accounting degree. I am a CPA in 2 states here in the US. That was my career track as well, for exactly the same reason. It's like, get an accounting degree, get a good job, blah, 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 blah. So you had exactly the same.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And
okay.
so, right. So
Yeah.
I did all the things. I climbed the corporate America ladder. I landed a beautiful corner office in San Francisco on the 44th floor. It was had a good boyfriend, was making really good money, could do the things I wanted to do and live the way I wanted to live. Right. So that's what my life looked like from the outside. But on the inside was a much different story, because I was living in extreme emotional eating. I was emotionally drinking. I was compulsively buying things and having immediate buyer's remorse. I would think that if I just bought the right dress, it would make me feel pretty. And then the next day I'd feel guilty about that. And then I'd punish myself with running, like longer runs, emotionally eating at night, and then going out with the girlfriends on the weekends, living in this continual stress and fight or flight, living in overwhelm, fear, anxiety, depression, sadness, and all the while putting on this front that, yeah, things are good, right? Like things are great. And one afternoon, I was standing in my corner office. It overlooked the Golden Gate Bridge. And I absolutely, it's this beautiful vista. I used to do it every afternoon. But on this particular day, I'm standing there and I felt like my world was falling apart. I felt like I was an imposter in my life. I didn't know how the fuck I got there. And I sure as hell didn't know how I was going to maintain this facade. I felt like I didn't belong in this position. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was extremely depressed. I was just overwhelmed as hell. And all of a sudden, as I'm standing there, I realize I had climbed the wrong mountain.
Bing.
I had climbed what other people had told me, and I didn't follow my destiny. And I wish I could say that all of a sudden I made that decision and everything started to come together, but it really didn't. Like I had to start doing all the self-development. I had to really dive in. And I'm from the generation where we did have internet at that time, but it wasn't like Google was just like in every office in every place, right? So it was more like going to Barnes and Noble, and there were no such thing as life coaches online. So over the course of like 10 years, I did a lot of trial and error. I did manage to get myself out of corporate America by first starting a direct sales company, which was incredibly fantastic. And that's where I found my love and my desire to help people that want to transform the world make a shit ton of money, because I want to create better quality of life for them so they can create better quality of life for everyone else and raise the frequency of the planet, right? So that enabled me to leave corporate America. And then that position allowed me to branch out on my own and create my own business, helping coaches and healers.
Well, and it's interesting because I want to go back a little bit and hit on a couple of the things that you just said, because I see myself in your story, right? And I think a lot of other people see themselves as well. right? Because what ends up happening, same thing happened to me. Climb up in corporate America. You know, I started in public accounting, became an executive at several companies in corporate, and you work your way up. You just keep climbing the ladder, right? And then you get to the top of the ladder. I love that example. Whether you're climbing to the top of a mountain, I've always heard climbing up a ladder. You get to the top of the ladder, you look around, and you're like, "What the fuck? I'm on the wrong building."
How
Right?
the
Or I'm
hell
on
did
the
I
wrong
get here?
mountain. Yeah. How did I get here?
So much imposter syndrome, right? Like I was like, how did I manage to do this? And I'm 30,
Mhm.
right? You know how? A shit ton of hard work and hustle, long hours, 70, 75 hours in the office, like just barely getting by, feeling like you're living life like on this edge. And at any given moment, it's going to teeter and you're just like, everything's going to be gone.
Well, and I think it's interesting because, like you said, you had externally the ideal life. I mean, San Francisco is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. I mean, I love it. I'm in Southern California, but sitting there and looking at the Golden Gate Bridge, the bay, everything else, like you said, you had a good job, you were making good money, corner office, great boyfriend. Everybody would be like, "Lynn, you got it made, girl.
You made it.
You made it," right? And on the inside, though, remind people again, how were you feeling on the inside?
Oh my God. I mean, it doesn't even give it justice because I was living in this continual, like, if you imagine like a serpent eating its own tail, of
Mhm.
fight or flight. Like I felt like I was being eaten alive by my emotions. I was always trying to run from feeling the feelings, and I'll go into that a little bit later. But if I felt like, I would wake up and I'd immediately feel anxious or overwhelmed and get to work and be planning on how am I going to do external things to try and solve this internal problem. So it was like, oh, Mexican food and a margarita for lunch. Okay, a Coca-Cola for a snack in the afternoon. I'm going to go for a run after, and then I'm going to go out with the girls and air quote, blow off some steam, right? And so it was like, uncomfortable moment, distracting behaviors, uncomfortable moment, distracting behaviors. And it just grew. It's like a snowball, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger until it began to lead to health issues. I had massive weight loss. I was getting migraines, which I never had. Just a lot of really physical challenges that were coming along with living in that situation of being so depressed and sad, and knowing that I didn't want to be making corporations ginormous amounts of money. But when you're in a position like this, and I bet you can imagine, how do you change that? I'm here, but how am I supposed to start brand new?
Well, and
But I did
especially,
it.
yeah, you did it. I've done it. I mean, lots of other people have done it. But there is, I know when you were talking at the beginning, you start off as this little baby, and then we get taught these things, right? And so the problem was, it was the same thing for me, right? To where you get to a certain point, you've done what everybody else around you is telling you that you need to do, and you're making good money, and you've been taught that's the only way to make money, right? I mean, again, for me growing up, I was kind of taught that same thing. You go to college, you get a degree, you work for a company, you put your head down, you put in your 30, 40 years, you get your pension. That's what life is about, right? And if it sucks, well, hey, you know what, kids? Sorry, but that's just life, right?
You
Life
got those,
sucks.
right? You
And then
got
you
those 4
die.
weeks vacation. What are you complaining about?
Oh, hell, I had 6 weeks of vacation, but I could never take it,
Uh-uh. I
right?
know. I know.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting what you were saying, because I see myself, I did the same thing. I'm sure a lot of people that are listening can see the same thing. You have this uncomfortable time, you get distracted a little bit, uncomfortable moment, you get distracted. The problem is most of us, the distraction, like you said, is external. It's blowing off steam, right? So you end up, drinking, because that's one of the ways that a lot of people turn to: drinking, shopping, drugs, sex, other things like that, to try to numb ourselves from the outside. Only the problem is, right, we get on this little hamster wheel, and all of a sudden we're having a couple of glasses of scotch at night, and before we know it, we're drinking a whole fifth of whiskey at night, and then it starts to really suck, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because then, you go to bed, you wake up hungover, you've got a headache, you've got to go through and do it all again. It's the whole popping pills at night to go to sleep, popping pills in the morning to wake up and get yourself going, right? And that is, unfortunately, it's a reality for a lot of people that are out there, right? So I know you said you had kind of 10 years of trial and error. So let's talk a little bit about that, because like I said, you and I kind of come from the same vein. And so we already know it's not changing those external things that makes a difference. It's changing the internal things. So what we're going to talk about, and I'm sure what you're going to share, is it might be 180 degrees different than the people that are listening think it's going to take for them to get out of this pit that they've dug for themselves. So everybody listening, just hold on, right? You might hear us say some things and you're like, you guys are full of shit. Well, just hold on, because I promise, it's gotten both of us through this. It's gotten lots of other people we know through it, and it can get you through it too. But you got to be open-minded to it and actually do the work. So what did this kind of look like for you? I mean, how did you get?
For me, it was a lot of trial and error, which is really lucky today that people don't have to go through that, because of the ability to find amazing coaches online and help them through that. And even like within businesses. So I don't teach strategy as a business coach. I teach the mindset part, because that is the part that links the strategy that you need into place. And so I had to do like a lot of reading. I went through a lot of phases. I had a lot of different coaches. Like first it was all about, getting a handle on my weight and getting healthier. And through that, I started learning about what's going on the inside, what I'm thinking. I went through a lot of different phases over that 10-year span. So I didn't have access to all the solutions that are out there now, all these online opportunities. So I had to do it through trial and error and finding different books. I went to, back then it was therapy. It was really hard to find life coaches, but I started diving in first to what I wanted to create in my external life and through the methods that were taught. And really what was the catalyst behind me going to the inside job was knowing that I needed to get a handle on my physical health, my well-being, from everything that was happening from all my stress. And so I hired my very first coach was about my body. And from there, she was the one that started teaching me about what was going on inside the brain. Not from brain science aspect, but just by, kind of an Abraham Hicks approach. Okay. But that's really what got me excited, because I began to realize the power of the mind, the brain, and I wanted to know more. And so I really started deep diving into the brain science of it all and figuring out how I got there and what needed to change and what needs to change on a daily basis in order for me not to continue that pattern. And so that's what I did. I dove deep into it and I understand it. And that's what I share in my program, because I believe that once you really understand the way thoughts and belief systems are formed and how we get into that fight or flight, it allows us the power to change it. It gives us the knowledge to be able to start transforming it. And so I always share this to give people hope for their own transformation, because this isn't like some woo-woo shit. This is literally brain science. And a majority of people walk around not even considering the power of the brain, or they conceive like, okay, the brain, it's an organ, it's a decision maker, and that's as far as it goes. But I can keep the description, or I can help you understand the brain without going into like super technical jargon, because it's really important to understand that you're not making decisions from your logical brain. We think we are, but we are not. We're not. It all comes from the subconscious.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest things, that when you finally realize that, and again, I don't know if it's just, we've been programmed to think as humans, we're so smart. We have this cognitive brain, and none of the other animals does. And so that makes us, superior. And so we can only rely on our logical brain. And it's like, that is such bullshit. And to give, like you said, I mean, most of our decisions are made subconsciously without our consciousness ever being brought into it. We find excuses later for why we made the emotional decision, right? Because we have to somehow justify it. But what I wanted to do, and this, again, we can go there, not go there, you tell me, but I wanted to kind of use, you said your first coach was somebody to help you with your body, with your weight. Okay. And so I want to kind of use this because, and let's dig into this deeper, because again, the work that I do, and you and I kind of know this, there were other reasons why it was difficult for you to lose weight, and it had nothing to do with the weight, right? So again, most people, when they think, well, I need to lose 50 pounds, so I'm just going to go run, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to do all these things. And sometimes that works in the short term, but unless you remove the underlying thing, it ain't going to change, right? So you've already done the work. And again, like I said, share what you feel comfortable sharing, but I think this will be helpful for people to understand, because the reason you gained the weight
was not because I was overeating.
No, and it wasn't probably the reason you thought going into it, right? So fill us in on that, because again, I've already picked up some things on it, but tell your story.
Okay, so I'm going to get all preachy here.
Okay.
Because the diet industry destroys lives flat out. Like, it tells you deprivation and creating strict diets is the way to lose weight, and it's absolutely wrong. And so you find people yo-yo weight loss, yo-yo weight gaining. And previous to having that coach, the direct sales company I was in was nutrition and fitness, and I'm a marathoner, and so we had a lot of external circumstances happen where we moved to a new city. There was a lot of stress involved. I didn't have the ability to run as much, and so I was not accommodating, making adaptations for the calories in, calorie out, right? And I gained some weight, and then I realized I can't do it the way I was before, because I was highly conscious about deprivation. Like, I can't eat this, I can't eat that, I have to run this much. If I eat a cookie, that means 2 miles more on the road, all that internal bullshit, right? So I knew when I was going into it, I'm like, I can't do this the way I've been doing it. I had no desire to go back to extreme calorie counting and all that. And so when I went into it, I became the student. I was like, teach me. How do I get this? the first part, you have to love what you already have. You have to love your body, chill out, take a beat, and just accept it for what it is. And you have to get out of the fight or flight. Now, with her, I didn't go into any of the brain science stuff. That's really what began to transition things. But once you like move out of, I'm making bad decisions, I'm, like all those self-judging, snarky inner critic voices, once you begin to release those and not listen to them and debunk those belief systems that aren't supporting you, you begin to move out of that fight or flight, can always being self-judging. So she had us do some simple exercises that I'm sure every life coach out there does. Make a list of your limiting beliefs and then debunk them on the other side, right? And so that's what really got the ball rolling, because I would say, like, my limiting beliefs that were always going on in my head, you're not committed, right? And then I debunked it. I'm a marathoner. You can't not be a committed person and marathon, right?
And run 26.2 miles, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I would debunk these, and I was like, there's something to this. What is it? And what I noticed is, sure, I could debunk it, but it didn't get rid of the voice. Uh-huh. Right. So even though my logical brain said, no, that's not true. That's not true. My subconscious, where all those limiting beliefs are formed, was just like, nope, it's true. So why even try? Stop doing that. It's not worth your time. Right. It was always trying to talk me out of continuing the process. So that's really what became very interesting to me, is why can I do these, write down this list and debunked it, but still not change the inner voice or the belief systems around it? So I wanted to go deeper. And so I did.
Well, and as you go deeper, what are some of the ways that you went deeper, and what did you find out?
So I really got involved in the brain, and then, I continued that journey and became a master hypnotist, a certified master hypnotist. Mm-hmm. And that gave me incredible insight to the way the brain works. And here's the thing, that logical brain that we believe that we're making decisions from every day has a very finite memory. It's very limited. While our subconscious, where our beliefs about ourselves, our capabilities, the world, all those and our habits are stored, that subconscious has infinite memory, and it remembers everything since birth. And this is important to know, because it's supposed to do that. It's like the record keeper of linear time. It's meant to protect us. So it has to remember what danger is. And how it remembers what danger is by how we feel. So every time we get that uncomfortable physical feeling, it goes, red flag, alert, Will Robbins. You got to do something. Let's distract her from this, or let's don't let her go there. And so while a lot of the times, well, in the past, it might have been something that was life-threatening, right? Created a number of these emotions, like my sexual assault created new meanings and emotions and behaviors around it. Any of the emotions or meanings and behaviors that were created around that sexual assault over years and years and years and years and years just kept validating it, because if I ever felt anxious or sad or overwhelmed or confused, it would create a physical feeling. And then my subconscious would say, we don't like this feeling, do something. Do a distracting behavior so you don't feel it. So here's what it would look like. It goes, so while as I got older, I didn't have life-threatening situations, it would be like the fear of doing a Facebook Live for my business, right? Or, I have dyslexia, so I had a lot of anxiety about writing. And it would go, don't post it, perfectionism gets in the way, right? Or procrastination. Don't do it. What's going to happen if you post that out there and something's wrong with that? What are people going to say? And so my subconscious would grab a hold of that, and it would create these physical feelings like shortness of breath, like, oh my God, what are people going to think? And then it would go, hey, Lynn Louise, remember that time that you felt that way, felt this way, and you had that glass of wine and it made you feel better? Why don't you go do that? Right. And so I would go do that. And the next time it would say, oh, Lynn Louise, remember that time you felt this way and you ate a piece of cake and it made you feel better? Why don't you go do that? And so what happens is, this is distracting behavior. It would even say, remember that time you went for that long run and it made you feel better? Go and do that. This is why I tell my clients, the first thing you have to do is remove any meaning, good or bad, around distracting behaviors, because they are distracting you from feeling the feelings. Running is what I love. I love doing it, but I was using it as a distracting behavior. And by doing that, it becomes very destructive. So that's what leads us into this fight or flight lifestyle. It goes, oh, don't do that. Don't do that Facebook Live. Why don't you distract with something? Instead, why don't you go grab something out of the fridge? Instead of doing that, I always talk about business stuff because I work with it. Instead of prospecting for clients, why don't you distract by like binge watching Netflix? It makes you feel better. Go watch an episode of, Big Bang Theory. So what happens is stress, fight or flight, stress, fight or flight, stress, fight or flight, right? Or stress, distracting behavior, stress, distracting behavior. And it just continues to build and build and build until we're living in a continual fight or flight.
Well, that's why so many people feel so exhausted, because we're literally, we feel like we're running away from a bear all day long, right?
And
because with
the toll that it has on your body.
Yeah.
You're releasing, when you're living in fight or flight, you're releasing, and this was my challenge. This is the biggest challenge, dangerous hormones and chemicals into your system 24 hours a day. Because if you believe that your subconscious takes a break when you go to bed, you're wrong. It is working in overtime, right? So even while you're sleeping, it's in that cycle, just continually leaving toxins and creating health issues, weight gain, gallbladder issues, digestion, gut health, constipation, all kinds of crap. Literally.
Well, you bring up constipation because it's funny, because how much of the time the body is just responding to what we're emotionally feeling. And so even something as simple as constipation, it's funny because when people are constipated, it's usually because there's some emotional or energetic block that is then transferring itself into our gastro system, right? And we all know how good it feels to finally not be constipated, right? Well, it's the same thing energetically as well. So yeah, because what I'm hearing you say, right, is that and again, I'm sure everybody can relate to this, right? We distract ourselves, and our subconscious is doing that to try to protect us, right? But we distract ourselves, and the reason that it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, right? Kind of like what you were talking about before when you were in the corner office, things were getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, right? Because we know we should prospect, let's say, right? To use that example that you had. But no, I don't really feel like it because it's uncomfortable. So I'm going to go watch Netflix. So we go watch Netflix. Then when we come away from that distracted behavior, we're like, shit, I didn't prospect. I got to prospect. Nope, some other distracting behavior. And then all of a sudden, we realize that we've gone 2 weeks without ever prospecting. Now it's like, holy shit, I don't have any money because there's no sales coming in because I've been distracted for the whole time. So your anxiety level is even higher at that point, right? And we've got to kind of do that pattern interrupt, realize kind of where we're at, love what you already have and accept, right? Mm-hmm. That's one of the first steps. But I think it's interesting too, because as you were talking about weight, and the minute that you said that, I went, and I remembered your sexual assault when you were 15. Because again, this is one of those things that I know as a hypnotist, you help people through this kind of stuff, is sometimes there's a trauma like that happens, and it is so deep seated that your subconscious doesn't want to let go of it. And this, especially for women, translates. I mean, again, if I'm full of shit, tell me, but I've seen this from a lot of
You're
women.
on the right track. You're on the right track.
That especially if you have been sexually assaulted, subconsciously you gain weight to try to make yourself not attractive, right, to other people, because you feel like if I'm overweight, if I'm not attractive, nobody else is going to do that to me again.
It definitely can be a symptom, but every woman processes things differently, right? Like I didn't ever have a weight issue like that.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that it didn't represent in other areas of my life. Like there were some like I started by drinking, and when drinking wasn't, hitting the spot, I went to drugs when drugs weren't, and I quit. I went to, I got old enough that I was like, I can't do this. I'm an adult now. Then I went to emotional eating and back to drinking. And like there are different things that happen, but it's so much on a subconscious level, like, because we don't have the awareness, we don't have the knowledge of how that original trauma affects us long term. And especially the reality is, it's like 1 in 5 women are sexually assaulted. Those are the ones that are reported. Mine wasn't reported. It was by my best friend. I was 15. I thought I was an adult. I was the furthest thing from an adult, right? But I didn't tell anybody because I was like, oh, it must be my fault or weird or whatever, right? So there's all these women out there that are masking and hiding and trying to recover and help themselves through something like this, or even their domestic partners doing it to them, right? So there's all this trauma in our culture when it comes to, like, we're a rape culture. It's really disgusting, but we are. And so there's all these wounded women out there operating and trying to heal themselves. And I see this a lot. Like we all know, like psychologists practice psychology, like learn it so that they can heal themselves. Same thing with life coaches. Like, why do people get involved in life coaching to begin with? Because they wanted to heal themselves. And then when they saw that it was working, then they wanted to help other people through it, right? In all sorts of different traumas and whatever. But it creates our subconscious. What it does is it just wants to keep us safe. Like it doesn't like anything unpredictable. It doesn't want, even though doing a Facebook Live is not sexual assault, it says this feeling feels like if you do this, you might die. So let's not do that. I can't predict the future, but I can keep you where you are. And I'm going to tell you, one of the biggest challenges, and this is why helping women and like anyone make a lot of money, is because through my sexual assault, strangely enough, after all the journey, the biggest way it kept me small was through money fears. And it wasn't because I had the belief system that money doesn't grow on trees, that, I'm not supposed to be rich or anything like that. It went back to a core level belief system that if I don't have money, I'm not safe and I will die. So every day I was looking at my bank account to see, it didn't matter if I had $1 million in there or 3 million or $3. I would look at my account and I would see what I did not have. And I would go, what's going to happen? Like if I have emergency or what happens? And it didn't matter how much was in there. And I saw both. I saw $3 and I've seen millions, right? Like it's like one of those scenarios where it's like really, and then I would lose it all. And then I'd gain it all. And then I'd lose it all. And then it was just like yo-yo weight gaining. It was yo-yo finances. but I was always living in a continual like stress factor that was created. As a master hypnotist, I was able to go back and clear those belief systems so that I no longer have those money fears. And this is a big part of what I coach and what I work with people on, because I realized that it all comes from two places: a fear of not being lovable or a fear of not being safe. And when we can really transform those belief patterns on a subconscious core level, we relieve that stressor and we can open ourselves up to allowing more money in, because money in abundance comes through our self-esteem. And if our subconscious says that we're not worthy, or that it might be dangerous for us to lean in because we're not worthy enough, we're not smart enough, we're not strong enough, then it's going to be very hard for us to really step into that pure abundance and open that funnel up to just like allow the people to come into our life that we want for clients.
Well, and I think it's interesting because as you're talking about this, and just to kind of set it, because again, some people might not be business owners that are listening to this, but what we're talking about can show up different ways in your life, right? And so again, as I'm sitting here, talking to you, we all have experienced different things. Big T, little t trauma, right? So
it's all trauma.
We've all experienced some trauma. Big T would be like sexual assault, right? Something major, but we all experience little traumas throughout our life that create these beliefs in us. And so, especially, like you're saying, so many people, life coaches, hypnotists, other people like that now that want to help people, right? And so there might be some people sitting there thinking, well, I can just think my way out of this, right? But let me, they're called blind spots because you can't see them. Only someone else can help you see those blind spots. So just like you were talking about, with your coach with health at the beginning, or other things that you've done over time, I'm guessing that, again, you had no idea that was what was behind it, right? So again, you were talking about your money issues, millions to $3, and you're sitting there going, what the fuck? Why can't I just keep the money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And consciously you're trying to process it. And it's like, this doesn't make any sense, but I'm going to figure it out. This doesn't make any sense, but I'm going to figure it out. Well, you finally figured it out when you realized, or you had somebody help you see that sexual assault at 15 was one of those things that was subconsciously behind this. And once you cleared that, the world opened up, I'm guessing, right? I mean, tell me.
I do want to say, like, the day that I was standing in my San Francisco office feeling like my world was shattering, my sexual assault was the furthest thing in my mind from my mind, because here's the thing: I had healed from it. I could talk about it without crying. I did not have any attachments to that sexual assault. My subconscious did.
Yeah, so consciously you'd cleared it, but you hadn't subconsciously cleared it.
Yes. So it wasn't like, and I want to be clear too, when I talk, because I do age regression hypnosis. When we take somebody back, we do not take them back to the initial trauma. We take them back before it even happened to empower them. So you don't go through the experience again, but it allows you to clear the belief system that you are safe, that you are lovable, blah, 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 and then you're good. That's a short version. but I had no idea, because after I practiced and became a master hypnotist, one of my colleagues wanted to do hypnosis on me. And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, I'm always up for it. I love empowering people in hypnosis. And she wanted to get some good feedback, whatever. And so when we did it, we were doing it around money, my money fears. And it all went back to not feeling safe. And it's like, you don't put the two and two together. Like, how was I ever to believe that those two, like that event would have anything to do with me struggling financially?
But
But
you
it
wouldn't. I
did.
mean, logically, you wouldn't. You wouldn't think
No,
that. You'd never think that in a million years.
no,
Yeah.
right?
Well, that's why, like I said at the beginning, right? I mean, everybody listening, right? A lot of times it ain't what you think it is consciously, or, like you said, very eloquently too, that a lot of times we've maybe cleared something consciously, but we haven't really cleared it subconsciously. And so that's why it still sticks around until we can actually do that. And that's where things like coaching and hypnotherapy and other stuff like that are ways to help us break through those things so much quicker than, like you said, you and I are both old enough that it was going to Barnes and Noble and reading that, or going to therapy for years. I mean, I was just talking to somebody, or listened to somebody this last week, and this woman has been in therapy for 40 years. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Go do some hypnosis.
Is it not
sessions.
working?
Well, it's yeah.
No judging. We shouldn't.
No
but
judging.
At the same time, it's like, if that's not working, if you're not seeing results, try something new. And, I do tell, and I do work with clients that have therapists, and it, like, you can work on something over and over and over for years, or you can go to a master hypnotist like me and clear it out in a matter of weeks, right? Like, it's remarkable it's scientifically backed. But what I do want people to understand too is that our journey as a human being, it's a never ending self-development journey as long as you're on this planet, right? So I will always have a coach that is helping me in my business, helping me in my evolution, helping me become a better person, because every day we have an opportunity to be and do better. And that requires somebody helping us continually see in those blind spots. And the one thing about the brain is that the brain is always, its job, the subconscious's job, is to survey your external environment and place meaning on things. So every day it is creating limiting beliefs. And unless you learn the method to continually stop those belief systems and stop placing that meaning on it, you can do all the work, but you're still going to be creating limiting beliefs as you go along. So you want to have that method into place so that you don't create new limiting beliefs. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because until we actually kind of break the cycle continues, right? Mm-hmm. And the more that we try it, I mean, that's where the self-talk comes in a lot too, right? Is that, when things don't go the way we think they should, that's when that negative self-talk comes in. When the negative self-talk comes in, because you talked earlier about imposter syndrome, that's where some of that stuff comes from, because it's a negative self-talk of us beating ourselves up emotionally, that each time you do that, it creates that, reinforces or creates a new limiting belief. It's when we switch and start doing things different that's when we start changing our stories, right? We're rewriting the stories, we're reprogramming the subconscious so that we can actually move forward viewing the world in a different place, right? And so again, like in your instance, over your 10 years of trial and error, you somehow reprogrammed yourself to realize that it's okay to not be in the corner office. You're not going to die, right, if you walk away from corporate America, if that's what you choose to do. Mm-hmm. Or if you choose, hey, I like corporate America, that's great, because I want to help it from the inside, right? I want to be some of the change inside. That's fine too, right? But instead of letting it eat you up and literally kind of kill you or drink yourself to death as a result of it, you can change change your mindset, reprogram yourself so that you're not experiencing the world in the same way that you were.
And it's definitely not anything that you can do alone.
No.
Like nobody can.
Well, and that's one of those things that, again, I think even, you talk about the diet industry ruining lives. I think a lot of times self-help, industry does kind of the same thing, because even that term self-help makes you think you can just do it all by yourself. You can
I love
just
that.
You can just go read a book. You can just go to some seminar one time, and then you've got everything you need for the rest of your life.
It's a one and done deal.
It's a one and done deal, right? It's like somebody being a marathoner, and you study and you do all that stuff, and then you decide, hey, I got it, I did it, and then you just stop running, and it's like, well, of course I can run a marathon anytime I want to. I've done it before. Well, not if you haven't been doing the work. And on something like a marathon, it's pretty hard to keep yourself motivated even to do it the first time, unless you got a little help from a coach, from other people that are encouraging you to do it. Because it's fucking hard to run a marathon. I haven't done it yet. It's on my bucket list, but it takes a lot of commitment, and usually it requires people around you.
It does.
To help you do it.
I love that you bring that up, because I never thought about the self-development that way. And you're absolutely right. It makes you believe that you can do it by yourself, that you can transform. It is your responsibility to do the things and transform. But really, I just really stress to people, like, having a mentor or a coach is such a valuable thing throughout your life. You can't know what you don't know, and you can't learn it through a book.
Well, and there's no reason to be embarrassed by needing the help.
And right? Having a community of like-minded people that are doing the same thing is so powerful.
Yep. Yeah, because there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, again, imagine a professional athlete. It's like, no, I'm good. I won a gold medal, or I did something. I don't need a coach anymore. I'm just going to do it by myself. Think they're ever going to win another gold medal without the help? I mean, I don't know anybody in the sports world. I could probably say this pretty confidently, right? There is no one in the sports world who has won a championship, a gold medal, anything like that doesn't have people helping them, right? Either it's a team sport, so there's other people from the team there. Even if it's an individualized sport, there's coaches, there's other people that you're using that are helping you to get there.
I think about, I'm a big fan of Dwayne Johnson. I think he's just an amazing, beautiful individual. And I follow him on his social media, and you look at him, he still has a personal trainer, right? Look at, he is dedicated, he's committed, he goes and works out in his gym every day. He still has a personal trainer to keep him on task, doing the things that he needs to do to maintain the amount of health and nutrition and everything that he wants. There's never going to be a day that Dwayne Johnson doesn't have a personal trainer.
No. Yeah. For his whole life, he probably will. Right.
Yeah.
And again, but that's why the dude is ripped. I mean, his arms are bigger than my legs. Right. Dude's got an amazing body, right? Plus he's funny and he's a great actor and everything else.
He's totally high vibe. And if you think about it too, so Dwayne Johnson has spin-off companies, right? So he went into business with his personal trainer to create a whole line of stuff, one which includes an energy drink. There's another line like he has of tequila. Like he promotes, but he also, I can guarantee you, on the back end has a business coaches. He's not like, yeah, I'm just going to wing it. I was talking to a woman the other day, and she was like moaning and groaning about, but it's just me, right? Like, oh, but it's just me. And I'm like, you think Dwayne Johnson just like all of a sudden became rich? He was raised by a single mom. he had to overcome his own challenges, right? And I'm like, you just think that everything comes easy to him because he's famous. He had to start somewhere. Will Smith had to start somewhere. Everyone fucking has to start somewhere. So stop your, this is how I coach. I'm like, stop your moaning and groaning and start like taking action, inspired action. But I'm like, I had to start somewhere. I didn't just all of a sudden like, oh, I have a successful business. No, you have to start at ground zero, just like everyone else, right?
Well, I think that's an important point to bring home to people too, right? It's evolution and transformation over your life. It's not a quick fix, right? And so, like you said, I mean, if you take Dwayne Johnson or other people, it's like people see his success, and it always makes me smile every time somebody thinks that somebody's an overnight success, in music and acting and whatever, right? And it's like, yeah, maybe their chart, maybe they hit the top charts. So take like Nirvana, right? It's like, oh, Nirvana just huge, they just blew up, right? And it's like, man, this band came out of nowhere and all of a sudden they're, top selling artist in the world, multi-platinum album. It's like, you don't realize how much work those guys did before it ever got to that point. Just like Dwayne Johnson, right? I mean, single mom, grew up. I'm sure he had his challenges growing up. Football, I believe he played football
Samoan,
for a little
he was
while.
Samoan, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and then he ends up going into wrestling, and even that, making the switch from wrestling to being a serious actor. That wasn't overnight for him either. But I want to say, I think last year he was the top paid actor in the world, or pretty close to it. He was.
I love it.
With all of the different movies that he's done with Disney and some other things like that. I think he was in the top 3 or 4 of highest paid actors.
I love that you brought up Nirvana, because so they came about when I was in my 20s, right? And I remember seeing them as a no-name band opening for a shitty band in a small bar in Denver, Colorado, that nobody, right? Like they had to do the shitty circuits. They had to like start somewhere, right? And it took them a few years of doing like not getting paid, riding on a bus with some crappy band, that the crappy band doesn't exist anymore either,
Yeah. No, and there's a lot of work that goes in behind it, because just like you, one of my friends, actually, he was up in Seattle going to UW at the time, and that's why he said it was, they went to some bar. Hey, there's this cool band, kind of thing. They go to this bar up there, and then literally like 2 or 3 months later, right, the stratosphere. But they were playing the shitty place. Mm-hmm. Nobody knew who they were. And so there's a lot of hard work and commitment that goes into this as well.
I love that you bring up commitment. Thank you.
Yeah, because again, it's, what we're talking about, I'm not going to lie to anybody. A lot of the things are simple. They're not necessarily easy, because you have to be committed with it and you have to keep doing it.
Yeah. Right? Commitment's everything.
So many people give up after a week or two, and then they blame whatever else instead of sticking to it.
That I just was, this was the subject of my last coaching call with my Cosmic Collective. And I was saying, look at what you're committed to. So many people are like, we're like Amazon Prime culture, right? Like, oh, I'm going to go take this yoga class that's going to transform my life today. And they go take the class. And then at the end of class, they don't see the results that they want. And they're like, that didn't work. I'm going to stop going. And it's like, no, you have to put in the time and be committed to the process. And you have to allow the process and enjoy the process to unfold, and let go of the attachments that you have around what it means, or that I always say, let go of the attachment that you have to the outcome, so that you can allow it to transpire in the way that it's supposed to, whether it's weight loss or getting a new job or developing a relationship or finding clients, whatever it is, you have to just allow it. And that's the hardest thing, because we want to control every step of the way.
Well, and I think that's kind of goes back to this beautiful thing that I wrote down that you said, that I think is one of the themes of what we've been talking about today, is that you have to love what you already have too, right? And just kind of allow that, obviously we have work to do, but if you never come to that point where you're grateful and love where you're at right now, it's hard to go forward. If you're blaming people, if you're not doing the work, if you can't be grateful for what you have right now, it's hard to get off the hamster wheel, because a lot of
Mhm.
times that's part of what keeps the people on the hamster wheel, and kind of why they need that little pattern interrupt to be able to help stop them and
I
get
totally agree.
them going somewhere else.
Mhm.
Well, and as usual, I could keep talking for like hours and hours and hours. I know that's why, like, I never used to, at first it was like, why does somebody like Joe Rogan have a 3 or 4 hour podcast? Right? It's like, I can totally, I could keep talking, but we both got to get back to our life, and I'm sure everybody that's listening does too. But any final comments or ways that you'd kind of like to wrap up? There's been a lot of great information in this episode for people to digest. It's one of those they could listen to many times, and you're going to get something different out of it every time you listen.
I'll just give a little thing that you can do to begin to bring awareness around those thought patterns that are happening. And it's just not sitting in meditation, sitting in silence, no phone, no TV, no music, no pets, no kids, just sitting alone and allowing yourself to observe what you are thinking, and not attaching meaning to it, not attaching self-judgment, just coming to an understanding that it's your subconscious, and that awareness that you need to bring you out of letting it run the show. And I'm going to talk specifically to the people that have a meditation practice. We know that meditation is not a practice, it's a state of being. It is a way to live your life every day. So in that nice state of calmness, this is what you ultimately want to achieve. But a lot of the times when we're practicing meditation, it is training your brain, your subconscious, to be quiet during that time. Right? So if you wake up every day and you do your morning meditation around the same time every day, your brain says, "Ooh, shh, everyone, she's doing meditation. Be quiet, right?" Because it's a habit. This is habit brain. What I'm telling you to do is be silent at some point during the time. So if you're normally doing meditation in the morning and that's the only time you do it, I suggest you try doing it at 3 p.m. in the afternoon and see if you get the same effect. Whenever you are creating a new AKA habit, you don't want to incorporate your, let's call them rituals, like meditation, self-hypnosis. You don't want to keep them in the same pattern, because your brain loves predictability and patterns. So if that habit becomes so predictable, it will become a habit, and your brain, you will train to respond in that manner, and you won't gain any more from your practice.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, because it effectively kind of becomes white noise at that point, and the things
It's like, hey,
are not as effective as it used to be. It's the same thing, like you're a runner. If you ran the same exact route
distance
every single day, that's not going, eventually your body is going to acclimate, and you're not going to get what you need. Versus, that's why so many people mix up their training a little bit, or do, I think it was called fartlek. I always loved
Yeah, I
that.
love fartleks.
Fartlek is especially as a teenage kid, running cross country, when our coach talked us about fartlek, it's like fart.
I know, right?
Right. But it's speeding up and slowing down as you're running. So, same kind of thing, that you don't get back into effectively one of those unconscious patterns again.
Mindset is a muscle. Mindset is a skill set. this is why it's so like, this is why I really dive deep into like the brain and mindset with coaches and healers in business. And this is even like in anything in life, because it's a skill set just like everything else.
Yep.
But it's the most valuable skill set you will ever learn, because once you learn to master your brain, you can really operate from calmness. You can make decisions based on possibility. You can like always find the opportunities and leave behind the self-judgment or making decisions based in negative experiences and limitations from the past. But you can step fully into really what you want to create and know to the core that it's done, that it's happening, that there's like, no problem, I got this. You stop expelling energy on shit that is such a time waster, or I'm talking like physical energy and emotional energy. You want to take it big into the woo energy, whatever it is. It takes so much energy to operate in that fight or flight that once you release yourself from it, all it is opportunity. All it is possibility.
Yeah. Well, Lynn Louise, thank you for coming on here and for talking. I had a great time. I'm sure everybody that listened had a great time as well. And yeah, seriously, everybody listening, you might want to go back and rewind this one, because there's a lot of stuff packed into this particular episode. So how can people reach out to you? Just let us know kind of that, you know, if people are like, man, this is cool, I want to learn more about her.
Cool beans.
Cool bean. You say cool beans.
I totally say
cool beans. All right, there we go.
So I have a podcast, the Cosmic Valkyrie podcast. I have a Facebook group, which is Badass Business Building for High Vibe entrepreneurs. So I'll give you that link. I'm open. Like I have a website. I rarely give it out because who the hell looks at websites anymore? But it's the Cosmic Valkyrie website. Okay. But my podcast, check out my podcast, come into my Facebook group, reach out to me in DMs. Anyone's welcome. Friend me, whatever. Like I'm so easygoing. And my mission in this life is to really help people evolve. And so that's where my heart's coming from. So no judgment on others.
No, that's why I love you. And I love people like you, that, you know, there's a lot of us that we're just trying to make the world a better place, have a little revolution. And, you know,
not little.
No, well, okay. It's big. It's big. It's motherfucking big. Right.
I always say it's a typhoon of transformation.
Ooh, I like that term.
Right?
I like that term. Yeah. But yeah, because there's a lot of people out there trying to help people. And so people who want help, there is help available, you know, out there. So reach out to Lynn, reach out to me, reach out to whoever resonates with you. But as we talked about, you can't do this by yourself. So find people that'll help you, that resonate with you.
And I have, being that I help coaches and healers, I have a wonderful Rolodex of people that can help.
That are those people.
Personal life. Yeah. Personal life and business, but yeah. Wonderful.
So yeah, we'll make sure and put all your contact info in the show notes as well, so people can reach out. But again, thank you very much.
Thank you. It was an honor
coming on here today, and we just might have to have you back because I had a great time.
Let's do it.
All right. See you. Thanks.
And
that's a wrap. Thanks for listening. The fact that you listened to this entire episode means you got value, and others will too. Do me a favor and leave a 5-star review with comments, and then share with others. You can also check out all of my videos on my YouTube channel and my website, jasonmefford.com. This podcast is primarily for education and commentary and does not represent professional advice. Views and opinions expressed on this show are that of the individuals and not of their respective organizations.